things I've done, and regret is just a memory written on my brow, and there's nothing I can do about it now.
Well, I'll tell you what, Monday Mornings with Mitch on a Thursday is definitely different. This is our first live show ever. And I would just preface this by saying we understand that Murphy's Law does exist, and we assume something will go wrong at some point. So please bear with us. My name is Mitch Morse. I'm the host of Monday Mornings with Mitch. And with me, as always, is Casey Hahey. Casey is going to be on the ones and twos, going to be the disc jockey for everything that's going on. He's going to be, hopefully, by the end of this, reading some fan questions for our fine folks that will be joining us. To preface this, the reason why we are doing a live show is we have a slap banger coming down the pipes at Everbank Stadium right down the road here at 1 o'clock Eastern Time on Sunday. CBS, Tony Romo, Jim Nantz will be in the booth for two juggernauts, two teams coming to a head. The 13-4 Jacksonville Jaguars will be playing the 12-5 Buffalo Bills. And who better to bring in, Casey, than two folks who are ingrained in those markets? I'm talking about Michael DiRocco. We will call him D-Rock this whole time. He's been covering the Jags since 2013 with ESPN, and before that, doing some college football. And we will also have Matt Parrino. Oh, there's Michael. Hey, Michael. And we will have Matt Parrino with there's so many things. Shout podcast, works for Syracuse.com. He also does a live show prior to every Bills game. Among many other things, he's been covering the Bills for probably longer than it looks because he uses lotion. Fellas, I appreciate you coming on and joining us. How is everyone doing?
Doing great, Mitch. How are you?
I'm better for you asking. We got a little bit of the bug come through our house for Christmas. It hit me pretty hard. Matt, how are you, my friend?
I'm great. My son got it pretty hard, and the rest of us pretty much avoided it, which I feel like we're 2 weeks out, so I could talk about it without risking, all of us starting to feel sick. But thanks for having me. And the facial flow is thick right now.
Well, it's coming back.
It's coming back.
It's back. My wife willed it to come back. And what I like about D-Rock is he looks like if he was just wearing a little bit of the white thing, he could be Father D-Rock. He looks like a priest, and I dig that very much. Boys,
I'm here to forgive all your sins.
Yeah, dude. And believe me, I'm trying not to cuss because it's a live show, and I'm predisposed to using foul language when I get nervous. We do, if you look back and you just take a step back objectively, not having any dog in this hunt. This is one heck of a game coming up here on Sunday, right? We got two juggernauts, two teams that are coming to a head. Two different kind of vibes to begin the season and end the season, right? You had the Jags on the cusp of a 4-13 season, or flipping that to 13-4. Of course, interjected in by a whole new group of faces in the front office and the head coach, and then you have the Bills, who are still rocking a 12 wins in this postseason, and somehow people still feel a little bit let down by this season. So what I would like to do is start with D-Rock, and you are in the locker room, you're in with the fan base. What is the vibe in that locker room and with Jags Nation?
Well, certainly in the locker room, business as usual. You would think there would be a little bit of excitement, and I guess there is. It's the playoffs. There is that level of hey, we're still playing from the Jags players' perspective, but they've sort of approached this the same way they've done the last 8 weeks, and they've essentially been in the playoffs the last 8 weeks when you look at it, because when they took over the lead of the AFC South, they had the Texans right behind them, and they knew that they pretty much had to win out, or they were going to end up losing the division. So in the locker room, business as usual. Outside in the city, you can kind of feel the excitement growing. I mean, it's been 2022 was the last time they were in the playoffs. Before that, it was 2017. So it's not like in Buffalo where this is old hat. It is still really new and fresh, and the city is really starting to get going this week. It's going to be a sellout at Everbank Stadium. So I'm looking forward to it.
We were looking at Ticketmaster before, and they're doing Ticketmaster things. They're few and far between to find, and if you're looking for something that's 500 bones, that usually means huge anticipation. Now, D-Rock had talked about resilient, the Bills have been there, done that, but I feel like there is a little bit of a different vibe coming into this postseason. It's not a bad vibe, right? Like there's been these huge wins coming from behind. There's been these losses that might have been, some folks said that shouldn't have happened. It's the NFL, like that's going to happen. You've had, win streaks, you've had 2-game losing streaks. Like resiliency is built in this, but what is the vibe right now in that locker room as well?
I think the best word that I could use to describe what I felt in the room the last 2 days is reinvigorated. And I think that's one of the things that this last week allowed the Bills organizationally is you're coming off of that dogfight against the Eagles. Things didn't really go right on offense. Your defense finally had this just unbelievable performance, and it just felt like, everything just didn't come together in that game. And this is on the heels of a couple of big road wins. This is a team going back earlier in the season, road losses against Atlanta, road losses against Houston and Miami in the division. I mean, the Bills had won 8 straight against the Dolphins before that loss. So to me, what I think getting to week 18 and just accepting the fact that you're no longer the kings of the AFC East, that the road is going to be difficult to a potential AFC title game, Super Bowl. The week off last week really seems to have energized these guys. And I thought the best quote that I heard on Wednesday came from Spencer Brown, your old buddy, Mitch. And he said they were standing around at walkthrough on Wednesday, and all 5 of them, the starting offensive linemen, looked at each other and were like, man, I can't believe we're standing out here going through walkthroughs and none of us are hurting. And I think getting a week off, everybody but Osiris Torrance, to kind of recharge and get set for the kind of matchup that this is going to be. It's going to be physical on both sides of the ball. It's an offense that can score a lot of points, that can move. They have their own version of a dual threat quarterback, and they have a defensive player in Joshua Hines Allen, who, if you look over the course of the last 7 or 8 years that Josh has been in the league, I can argue that no player has been better against Josh Allen than Josh Allen. So it's this is really good matchup, but it's a group in Buffalo who I think have been there, done that, but they're doing it in a different way than they've had to do over the last couple of years, because now they're kind of back in that role of hunter as opposed to being the hunted.
That's an interesting perspective.
great
I hadn't
point.
thought about that. Because for years, you reap what you sow, and what they've sown is really good football. They've been hunted. They've hosted playoff games. And this is definitely a different vibe and going through that. And, it was interesting. I was thinking about that last home game that the Jags hosted. That Chargers game was something fierce, dude. Like, so when people talk about, Josh Allen having all this playoff experience, you can't refute the fact that Trevor Lawrence has that experience of coming with it down for this 27-point deficit against the Chargers coming back. Like, what do you think that means, D-Rock, to have in your back pocket for inevitably you're going to run into a little bit of you're going to have to be you have to persevere some hard times in the playoffs, and you have to have some stuff in your back pocket. Of course, you use what has gotten you there, but you have to have a little bit of resiliency, and this Jags team does have that resiliency in the playoffs.
Yeah, the one thing that we know about this team this year is they're going to be able to handle a punch in the mouth, because they got it certainly in Houston, and that was one of those punch in the mouths that you could set the team reeling for weeks. You give up a 19-point fourth quarter lead, but we've seen over the last 8 weeks that they were able to turn that around. They were able to handle that, deal with it, compartmentalize it, put it behind them, and learn from it. Well, you also have that with Trevor Lawrence's 4-touchdown, 4-interception game against the Chargers back after the 2022 season. I mean, he was just not good in that first half. They all shook it off. They all kept plugging away. And, we give Trevor Lawrence all that credit for throwing 4 touchdown passes and then getting them in position so that they could go ahead and kick a game-winning field goal there at the end of regulation. But the defense only gave up 3 points, I think, after that. So there's the resiliency you see on that defense. But there's a feeling in that locker room now, especially with the way Trevor Lawrence has played over the last 8 weeks, that there is no deficit too big. There is nothing that can be thrown at them that they're not going to be able to handle and overcome. Now, you play in the playoffs are a different beast. We all know that. It's the intensity is a little bit higher. The stakes are a little bit bigger, and sometimes guys' rear ends get a little tighter in big moments. So we'll have to see how they can handle. It's a different team, obviously. Every year's a different team, but they've got a lot of guys that have some playoff experience. And, as good as Trevor Lawrence has played over the last 2 months, that has that locker room riding really, really high. They're really confident.
Speaking of that, guys who have banked playoff experience, you look at the Bills roster, there's loads of playoff experience, and especially a slew of guys they've brought back from, this is the same regime, but who come back, like a Jordan Phillips and a Jordan Poyer and Trey White and a Gabe Davis and all these guys. But the one thing that kind of stood out to me, Matt, and of course it's scarier than it actually seems, is our injury reports, right? And you can't put too much into injuries because it's part of the game. Of course, you have to document everything, but there's a stark difference between the Jags injury report and the Bills injury report. Can you give us a little bit of like a rundown of the vibe of, like, I feel like there's some guys who are going to have to step in for the first time, like a Dane Jackson's just signed off the practice squad. He's been there as well. But could we be seeing Daquan Jones come back? Could we be seeing Jordan Poyer come back? Are there guys that are just on that precautionary to make sure they're ready for this Sunday?
So yeah, it's a long injury report, and I think sometimes you see all the names and it's daunting to get through the list. There's some that really matter, right? I mean, Josh Allen's been on the injury report for about the last month. But in terms of the ones that really matter, you mentioned Daquan Jones. It's a weird spot because he's been dealing with that calf injury. This is starting defensive tackle to start the year, and he's been there for a long time. He's played big in playoff games. He had a calf injury against Atlanta in Week 6, and it's been nagging him all season long. He's missed the last 2 games because of it. It looks like he's trending towards playing. He's been limited the last couple of days, but against the Eagles, Daquan Jones didn't play, and I thought that was the best interior performance of the season. And that is really headlined by this fourth-round rookie, Deion Walker out of Kentucky, that's really taken, things over, especially with Ed Oliver. He's only played 2.5 games this season. They're hoping to get him back if the Bills can make a long playoff run, but that's even kind of up in the air. The other big injury, too, is you see Josh Palmer, a guy that they went out and they signed as a free agent. He just hasn't hit very much this season. And I think part of that is serious ankle injury against the Falcons. That was kind of like a doom game, I guess. And he's kind of been dealing with that all season. He didn't practice today or yesterday, so it's very unlikely that he's able to go this weekend. But their new number 1 wide receiver is Brandon Cooks after getting him a month ago. It's amazing what a veteran player can do in this league in a short amount of time, because he's quickly come in here and become Josh Allen's probably most trusted targeted receiver. They got Gabe Davis is probably in that role as the most trusted. I mean, he's had big game. This is the guy that had 4 touchdowns in a game against the Chiefs a couple years ago. He had a really good performance last week. Then you have Khalil Shakir. And then we'll see what happens with Keon Coleman. The big injury of note is Dalton Kincaid is practicing. All signs point to him playing. He is the most important guy on offense for this team. They're a different passing game when he plays. And I think, Mike can kind of chime in here. This is, to me, if you're looking for an area to attack this team, teams have kind of had some success with their tight ends in the passing game.
Yeah, without question. And he's the guy, obviously, when they're talking about defending this offense, it's Josh Allen and James Cook, but he's the next guy they mentioned. And they've been really, tight ends have been a problem for this team. You go back and you look at their matchup, especially against the Raiders, and Bowers just absolutely destroyed them. Now, again, Bowers is elite, but Kincaid's pretty darn good too. So that's an area of concern for the Jaguars without question. Now they've gotten some really good play out of some young safeties. Antonio Johnson, who had been up and down first couple of years, he's having the best year of his career this year. So I think that's going to be a matchup to watch because they like to use him as a big nickel in a way, which is probably we're going to see a lot of him because of James Cook, obviously, and then having to deal with the tight end there. So I think that's going to be the key matchup for this defense. In the secondary, when Kincaid and Knox are out there, can they get something from Antonio Johnson the way he's played like the last couple of weeks, had an interception return for a touchdown against the Titans last week. And he's really elevated his game. He's one of like 3 or 4 guys in that secondary who at the beginning of the season, we thought, you know what, that guy's just going to be, he's just a guy, and he's, maybe he'll get some playing time, maybe he won't. They'll use some of the young guys and move on from him, but he's what, three or four of those guys in that secondary that have really kind of come on throughout the course of the season, and he's probably been the biggest surprise in the secondary.
I'm glad you guys brought up matchups. If you're just tuning in, we're live with, of course, Casey, who's my co-host. We have Matt Parrino from Buffalo, and we have Michael DiRocco, D-Rock, from the Jacksonville area. So I think like the low-hanging fruit when you talk about the key matchups everyone's talking about, everyone wants a piece of an opinion, or two juggernaut, I guess, if juggernauts in general. I know I've said that a few times, but you have the rushing attack of the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills are a rushing offense. That's what they feast on. Then you have one of the stingiest, if not the stingiest, run defenses in the NFL with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I have a few things. So let's start off with, because the 8-game win streak has been kind of this big topic, hot button topic. So I went back and looked at some of the big statistics from the last 8 games for both teams, and that is the rushing attack by the Bills and the rush yards allowed by the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. So starting back off, it was Tampa Bay game was 97 yards for the Buffalo Bills, and it went 143 yards, 249 yards against the Steelers, 183 yards rushing, 168 yards rushing, 164 yards rushing, 120 yards rushing, and then versus the Jets, 211 yards rushing. Now, on the other side of that, you have the Jacksonville Jaguars defense, who started off this 8-game win streak with 42 rush yards allowed, 55 yards allowed, 67 yards allowed, 89 yards allowed, 130 against a very good Denver defense, 101, 69, and 77. It's good on good, fellas. It's good on good. D-Rock, I have a question for you. Is Anthony Campanelli really the secret sauce behind this defense? Like, tell me what he's doing to help maximize this run defense.
Well, he has done a really good job of, and I think we may talk about this later, but at the bye, they kind of looked at, hey, what are we doing really well? What are we doing that we can really improve on, and what are some stuff that maybe we need to jettison here? Let's not overcomplicate things. Find what we're really good at, and let's go ahead and concentrate on doing that. And you mentioned Josh Hines-Allen earlier, and he's been very, very good as a pass rusher. He's among the top 5 in the league in pressures. He only has 8 sacks. But the thing about him and the guy on the other, and Trayvon Walker, the number 1 overall pick in 22, who's just really not become the pass rusher. They are really, really good edge setters and really good edge defenders against the run. And that, we point to the interior a lot for, run defense, and Devon Hamilton, the nose tackle, is probably having the best year of his career, even though the numbers may not show it. But he has been fantastic. But it's those guys out on the edge too that do a really good job of keeping that stuff funneled in and not letting guys get outside. So, Foye Oluokun, who you mentioned, is just a tackling machine.
Absolute beast.
Every week it's like 10, 12 tackles and, 2 for a loss. I mean, he's just all over the place. And then you add in Devin Lloyd, who's probably played, he's definitely played the best year of his career, and they figured out the right way to use him. And it's been, I didn't think that, I thought they had a chance to be pretty good against the run this year, but I didn't think it would be to that level. Now, part of that too, a little bit is, they've gotten off to some big leads on these teams like the Jets and the Titans, and the Chargers, for example, so they've been able to kind of take teams away out of that, and teams have had to go, they got to throw to catch up. So that's a little bit of it. But, look, they haven't given up a 100-yard rusher all year. I think there's only been one guy that's had 70 or more yards against his team. That was Jonathan Taylor, and he did it twice. But nobody else has cracked 70 yards against his team. So it's been pretty consistent, even when teams have been in games and they've tried to run it.
Talk about edge setters, Matt Parrino. I'm telling you, dude, I played on this team for a year. I would break the huddle. I would just look at the defense and I'd say, Jesus, these dudes are gigantic. Because of course you have those 2 edge setters who are just giant human beings. You have Devon Hamilton, who's a monster. And you have Eric Armstead, who's, dude, in his pads is at least 7 feet tall. Absolute maniac. Now, Matt, bread and butter, like we talked about, is this rush offense. They love it. In the beginning of the year, we talked about it earlier, is that they were hitting their bread and butter, which was Weak side, outside zone, backside cutoff, maybe a duo with a bounce back. Now they've added a few different wrinkles into that. My question for you is not so much the schematics of this, but how do you think Joe Brady and Aaron Cromer in this run offense attack or even continue doing what they do and feasting on that run game to set up that play action with those tight ends who are the guys that Josh is most comfortable with? How do they keep this going for this game?
So one of the wrinkles that I think is in the back pocket of Joe Brady that we have not seen this year, and we can get into the why, but they were the number one team in the NFL in terms of using the jumbo tight end, the extra offensive lineman in 2024. They haven't really had to use that this year because their rookie tight end, Jackson Hawes, has allowed them to become more of a 13 personnel team, 22, 12, however they kind of want to deploy the run game. And that to me is the secret sauce of what they're able to do, is that they run out of everything. Even in games, some games where they've struggled late in the season, offensively, they've still been able to even run out of 11 personnel, which hasn't always been the case for the Bills. That's really tough when you don't have all your big bodies on the field. That's really impressive. And I think part of that is like Dawson Knox is an above average, if not good blocker in the run game. That's a big piece of it. But here's one little nugget that I went back and looked at the Jags schedule, and it's daunting how good they've been against running backs. But the one game where I feel like a team got after them on the ground was when the quarterback took part in the action. And that was Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. He ran for 60 and a touchdown in that game. That's what you're facing this week against the Bills. Like, I don't care if that foot is broken. I don't care if he's hobbling. Josh Allen is going to be running, and he's going to be that untamed, wild animal. I know that you guys like to call him the Stallion, right? Like that's the little nickname in the building. He's going to be that on Sunday. And that's, to me, also what makes their traditional run game so special, is that you have to deal with James Cook in all these different ways to deploy him. Reggie Gilliam's a key to the run game. He is an elite level fullback blocker that doesn't get the love that he deserves. Hawes is great. They have great blocking receivers. Like Mitch, you've been around the league. How many times you go to a practice and it's individual drills, and the wide receivers are usually working with the wide receiver coach, routes versus air, everything like that. In Buffalo this year, especially, and it's probably at Cromer's direction, they're doing blocking drills. The wide receivers are doing blocking drills in practice. So I think this is just a team that it's like a mentality. They're going to try to set the physical tone in a game when it comes to their quarterback running, and then when the ball is in James Cook's hand. And Ray Davis, who you look up last week, I know it's the Jets. I mean, basically it was like, practice squad team, but he goes for over 100 with James Cook watching from the sideline, and they have a lot of talent in that room. And I didn't mention Ty Johnson on the injury report. He's dealing with an ankle, and he has not practiced the last 2 days. If he doesn't go, listen, they have tons of faith in James Cook and in Ray Davis. And you probably hear Ty Johnson like, okay, what's the big deal? He does a lot of different things. He's their best pass blocker at the running back position, and he is just that Swiss Army knife. And so if they don't have him available, it's definitely something worthwhile mentioning.
My favorite thing about Ty Johnson is that he's got that nose ring, and he acts like he's got a nose ring. He's a nasty-ass dude who plays hard. He's an unbelievable teammate. I'm glad you brought up Reggie Gilliam. He's not talked about. Jackson Hawes, of course, is that third tight end. He's always good for one of those real spicy catches when you need it too. I love that you brought up mentality, because I want to talk to you, Michael, about something. Everything for me about this team with the Jags changed after they got beat pretty bad in London. And that was in the bye week. And you sit there and there's two ways to go about it. One is to make the corrections, trust in yourself, like, no, we got a good-ass team, we got something here. Or you can sit there and be like, oh, here we go again. What did we not see as the casual fans or people from the outside that you might know or that happened in that organization that really changed the tide here?
Well, I mentioned it a little bit before. Anthony Campanile on defense was like, look, we got to figure out what we're doing. We're asking guys to do too much. And sometimes simpler is better, obviously, in a lot of things in life. And not to the point of it's a simple defense, but we don't need to do 17 different things here. Like, we're really good at doing these 5 or 6 things. So let's kind of figure out a way to make sure that that's what we are. That's what our personality, that's what we do. That's the best thing that we do. And that was, a big deal in terms of the back end too, with some of the young guys. That's sort of where things kind of helped. Like Jarian Jones, for example, one of the young corners, he starts the season and he's telling us in camp, it's like, I'd never played zone in my entire life. He's like, I've always been a man corner. And it's like,
Sick.
well, Jags are a big zone team, so that's not going to work. And, so they kind of simplified some things, especially, for him when he was out there on the field. And that kind of helped him. And he's been really, really good over the last 3 or 4 weeks. But offensively, and Mitch and I talked about this a little bit earlier, they had elevated Travis Hunter to the wide receiver 1 for that Rams game. And he had a 100-yard game. Really good ball game. Big touchdown catch late, or the only touchdown catch late. It's a nice play. But then they go to the bye, they come back, and then he hurts his knee on like the Tuesday before their next game. Yep. So now all of a sudden, all that work that you've done, Liam Cohen and Grant Udinski have done in that bye week to kind of change some of the things they're going to do on offense. Hunter was going to be wide receiver 1. They're going to use Brian Thomas Jr. a little differently. Parker Washington was going to get more involved. Hey, Brenton Strange is healthy. They're going to find a way to really kind of get him more involved in the pass game. Now all that's out the window, and you've got 3 days to kind of figure out how the heck your offense is going to get going. So that forced them to be a little bit more run focused, in the first game, and it forced them to kind of figure out what's the best way that we can get this pass game going. And when you saw the way they played against the Rams, and then they come out of that and they go to the Raiders and play in Vegas, the offense really kind of had trouble getting some it had trouble sustaining drive. It had trouble kind of, it just looked out of sync. There were guys were a half step slow. It looked disjointed. And it took them another week or two. And then the addition of Jacoby Myers, obviously, which I'm sure we'll talk about later, really kind of opened things up for them. But, man, it was just, they felt good about the changes on defense. But then when Travis Hunter goes down, you got to change everything in 3 days. And kudos to Liam Cohen and Grant Udinski because they got stuff figured out. It took them a couple of weeks, but, they've adjusted. They've moved some guys around and figured out different roles and the best way to use some of the other guys. And it's been a huge, huge benefit, as we've seen, as this offense sort of exploded, several weeks after that.
Yeah, explosion. I mean, I was just looking at it's a wild way to segue this, but I was just looking at like some of the receivers and their averages on for the Jaguars. And, you got to kind of take it with a grain of salt if a guy has like 150 yards catching. They might have 1 or 2 big plays, but they have 2 or 3. I mean, I think Brian Thomas Jr.'s got about 700 yards catching. He's got 11 yards per carry. You have Jacoby Myers and Parker Washington about that 850 mark. Parker Washington's about 15 yards per catch, and Jacoby Myers is about 11. So they got guys who can take the top off. Speaking of blowing the top off, Matt, dude, every time I've turned into a casual listener, a casual watcher of this Buffalo Bills team, and I have a ton of skin in the game. They're all my buddies. These first halves are giving me heart attacks, man. They really are, and maybe they just know because they want these cinematic second halves. But it kills me. And they come out in the second halves, and especially on defense, they play amazing. They're not afraid to blitz, and the blitz seems timely, and all these things. Like, what do you have an answer? Because I don't. Why is this team such a different second half ball club this year?
I think sometimes when you become so good at something, you're comfortable in that situation, right? And there's no team in the league, I think, this year that has been better at coming up with in-game adjustments off of how teams are playing against them. Now, I would argue, and we'll see if Sean McDermott has taken the lessons learned from this season and applies them to the playoffs. But, the defense hasn't been good in the first half. A lot of first opening drives where you're playing from behind early and often. And, they win the toss a lot and they defer to the second half. I'd argue maybe taking the ball. Take the ball first, get Josh Allen and the offense on the field, try to get them into a rhythm. Because here's another thing. With the new kickoff rule, field position is almost the battle plays out in a different way, because when you're kicking off to start the game and deferring to the second half, you're basically giving the ball to the other team probably somewhere around the 30 or 35-yard line. And I've seen plenty of kick returns that are going to the 45, 40. Maybe you don't hit in the landing zone, and now you're giving them a free start at the 40-yard line. If you get the ball first and say you go 3 and out, you're much more likely to be able to pin the opponent into the 20 yards or more with a punt, even from that part of the field, than you are on a kickoff. And the defense has started slowly, like consistently throughout the season. They've been better in the second half. So I think just from a operational standpoint, the way that the game has changed a little bit this year with the kickoff rule, you would think the Bills would want to operate in that world a little bit more. I also think they wait. It's like a chess match on both sides of the ball. They want to wait what you're going to do, see what you're going to do, and then adjust and figure it out. Problem is, in years past, especially on defense, that bend but don't break model has worked wonders, and teams have usually taken some time to figure out the Bills' defense. Right now, it feels like everybody has the answers to the test to start, and then the teacher takes away the cheat sheet halfway through the exam, and they're scrambling to try to figure it out. And I think a lot of that is also personnel-driven. Like Michael Hoyt and Ed Oliver going out in the midway point of the season changed everything for this Bills defense. They were playing, if you go back and watch that Kansas City Chiefs game, that was the most frustrated I've seen Patrick Mahomes in a game against the Bills his entire career. And the big part of that is how they were deploying Hoyt, how they were able to kind of roll through all of these different looks. I mean, it was almost like the vision that Brandon Beane had for building this defense came to fruition in this game, and then they lost the piece that was so important to him. The guy that's really stepped into that role late in the year, crazy as it sounds, is Dorian Williams, the outside linebacker, who they're kind of using a little bit more in the blitz game. So I think it's been about, when you run the ball, if teams come out and meet your physicality early and you're not able to run it, you're going to go a couple of drives without scoring it. And that happened in the New England game. And then they had to play from behind. There's just been a bunch of different game scripts that have led to them having to figure out how to come from behind. And I think that might help them in the playoffs, because they get into that situation. You mentioned it, I think, at the top, or maybe when we were talking, they are battle tested. They've been in situations where they've had to feel like there's no way they're going to win this game. Started week 1 against Baltimore when they're down 40-25, and they ended up winning that game by a point. So very much battle tested this season.
Matt, and I would also say too, if I'm hinting on the point of the kickoff role, right? And I think this plays in a huge favor, which could show up in the game on Sunday, because I think it will be a tight one. But you get the ball at the 35 on a kickoff, or and plays in Jacksonville's favor, because you got a guy named Cam Little that can kick a 68, 69, 70-yard field goal in preseason. But I mean, they get the ball on the kickoff, and then all they have to do is go 12, 15 yards, and then they can kick a field goal. And it's kind of crazy that we're having a conversation like that somebody can kick the ball that far. But, I think that's the way the game is transitioning, because, every year, every decade, whatever, it's bigger, faster, stronger. Guys are doing it a lot better. So at what point are we, changing that kickoff rule again?
I've seen that kid in practice. I probably have seen him
I've seen him hit a 72-yarder in practice.
Yeah, I mean, 5 or 6 70-yard kicks in camp. I mean, it is nothing to that kid. I mean, in Denver, he was warming up before the game, and he hit a 73-yarder, and just short on a 75-yarder. So I mean, it's one first down, and they're in field goal range. It's really what it is.
Yeah.
The biggest thing that stood out to me about that Jets game, Matt, was, of course, there's a ton of storylines. The one that stood out to me and kind of made me a little sick to my stomach, if I'm a Bills fan, is the Matt Prater news. What does that look like on that end?
Well, I was going to say, I mean, all this talk about Cam Little, I mean, the Bills could have 2 kickers in this game on Sunday.
And Matty Wright, who used to be a Jag.
Yes, and who, by the way, was the kicker, a little nugget here too, was the kicker for the opposite team the last time the Jacksonville Jaguars lost the game this season. He was kicking for the Houston Texans back in that game, which is crazy to think. He actually hit all of his kicks in that game, a couple extra points and a field goal. I think they're going to give Matt Prater every opportunity to play in this game.
Of course, yeah.
But he hasn't been as slam dunk on extra points as you think. He's missed 3 this season with the Bills. He missed 4 in his last 4 seasons combined. So he's a 41-year-old kicker. I definitely feel like the length of the season at his age, catching up with him. He's excited about going down to Florida. He thinks the temperature will maybe help him with the injured quad. Maybe won't get as tight on him. And that was the issue that came up on Sunday. But yeah, the Bills are going to have a tough decision because you can't get in a game like this on the road in the playoffs. It could be a one-possession game. It could be a 3-point game late in the game. It could be a tie game late. And if you need a 40-yard field goal to win, you can't be in a situation where you can't send your kicker out there because he can't kick it. So it's a really tough call. And the Bills have a bunch of like interesting roster moves here this week. You mentioned Dane Jackson at the top. The Maxwell Harrison injury makes things kind of interesting. Like if they get to a point where they're like, we really want Prater in this game, we trust him, but we can't get in this game and him get hurt and not have him. Is there a world we live in where they elevate Wright and they make them both active just in case? But man, could you imagine blowing an extra roster spot and an extra kicker? It could be bedlam. I mean, Bill's Twitter will melt down over the 24 hours before that game if that ends up happening. But we'll see how it goes.
It's a beautiful thing. Yeah, I mean, but on the flip side, if it comes down to Matt, who I hold in high regard, I think coming out here and playing as he's done at the age of 41, Father Time's undefeated, and he's kicking back like a motherfucker. Excuse my language. My wife's downstairs listening. She is. Hopefully she. But you're saying the thing. Okay, this is going to be a complete pivot, so forgive me here. First, let me say we are live with Matt Parrino and DiRocco here, respectively from Jacksonville, DiRocco, and Matt Parrino, Buffalo. Casey's on the 1s and 2s, hopefully looking up at some of the fan questions. Please submit your fan questions. I have a question myself for DiRocco. I was brought in with the Doug Peterson era. He was my first ever offensive coordinator for the Kansas City Chiefs. Loved him to death. You can't refute the fact that sometimes new life and new blood and new faces interject something for a franchise. And the case study is this year. You bring in a new president of the team, Tony Baselli. You have Grandy Densky at OC. You have Liam Cohen at head coach. You have Anthony Campanelli as the DC, and then you have James Gladstone. And it seems like these guys work really well together. And they've had to make some tough decisions that might be tough for other organizations. They don't seem to think it's tough. I'm sure they've had to have tough conversations with the players. Tell us about that relationship, how it's worked and how it's manifested in this season and throughout this season.
Yeah, I mean, I think, we've all been around the league long enough to know that it's generally usually lip service when the GM and the head coach or the executive or whatever, when they talk about, yeah, we're all in alignment, we're all it's collaboration on what we're doing. And we generally know, and I know this was the case certainly in Jacksonville, it's, hey, I'm giving you the players, the good players. They're really good players. You need to play those players. If they're not, you're not getting anything out of those players. It's the coaching fault. And, you got to fix that. And that's what sort of had been happening in Jacksonville for a while. And that's not like breaking any news here. It's sort of widely well known. And that happens in other organizations across the league all the time. But I know some people inside the organization that I've known since I've been covering this team. And they tell me that this Tony Baselli, James Gladstone, and Liam Cohen thing they are 3 peas in a pod. I mean, they are always together. It is unbelievable, like one voice. If Tony Baselli tells you something, these people are telling me, well, Gladstone agrees with it. Cohen agrees with it. They're all on the same page. And I'm like, yeah, we've heard this before. And these guys swear to me that it is a totally different atmosphere in there. And the one thing that they have done, and it sounds corny, I guess, but they've basically come up with a set of standards that are like, look, this is what we want in our players. We've all agreed on this. They got to be mentally and physically tough. They got to love football. They got to be football junkies. They got to want to play football. That's all, that's all their life. That's what they want. And, they've loaded the team up with a lot of those guys. But the thing that has really impressed me about those 3 is they've been willing to admit a mistake and move on, like immediately. And we all know that that's generally not what's done in the NFL. It takes coaches. There's no group of people on the planet more stubborn than a football coach. And to watch what they've done, De'Ami Brown, $10 million. They signed him for a 1-year deal. dropping passes early in the season, not where he's supposed to be. So they minimize him and basically take him out of the offense. Brian Thomas Jr., big year last year. They tried to use him over the middle, dropped about 5 passes in the first 6 weeks, shied away from some contact, and they realized, okay, we can't really use him in that way. We've got to use him a different way. We've got to use him outside, numbers out, stretch the field. He's not the guy that we need. Tank Bigsby got 5 carries in the season opener, wasn't engaged with his teammates, unhappy with his role. Boom, he's traded the next day. Darnell Savage, there were some issues with Darnell Savage. He lost a starting job. They weren't happy with the way he was playing. They cut him. They gave him a $4 million roster bonus in March, and he was guaranteed $2.2 million. His salary this year. They move on from Darnell Savage. I mean, this team has been willing to make changes during the season, admitting a mistake, and move on. And that's been a real huge key for them because they've been able to find younger guys. Emmanuel Agba, they brought the veteran in, and he hadn't really given them much. So they decided, you know what, we're going to play the young kids, the undrafted rookies, BJ Green, Danny Strigow, and they've been more productive than all of them. Mason Smith, a second-round pick last year, has given them absolutely nothing. So they're like, we're just going to, we'll throw, Austin Johnson in there, Michael Dickerson. We'll throw those guys in there and get some production out of those guys. It's an unusual approach to see people in that position be willing to admit the mistake and then move on immediately. And it's worked for them. Now, sometimes those things don't always work. But in this case, every move they've made in that regard has worked. And, it also sends a message to the rest of the locker room. Produce, or we'll find someone else who will.
Those are tough conversations to have. Those are real tough conversations to have. I knew that this group was a little bit different. I wouldn't say I would say they made a mistake in this case because he's my best buddy. Gabe Davis was on the hook for $15 million, and they just said, okay. I was furious with it. I couldn't believe it, but it set a tone. It set a tone for how they're going to do business. Yeah, it's interesting. It's okay. How about this, Matt Parrino? Quentin Morse. Does that name ring a bell to you? It got me going because Austin Johnson. There's a little bit of crossover in both these teams.
Savage is on the Bills now too. They picked him
Darnell
up
Savage on the Buffalo Bills.
There's nobody that I feel like I felt a simmering in Gabe Davis this week, and he does not get very. He does not show it very often, right? Like when we're talking, we handed out the media Good Guy Award. It's the Ken Hall Good Guy Award here today to Tre'Davious White, who has
great guy.
Dude, what a remarkable turnaround it's been for him. Like his last tenure, at the end of his last tenure here, I mean, he would not do an interview. Like he was going through some mental stuff. I mean, 2 catastrophic injuries. I mean, I can't imagine what he was going through. But going back to his rookie year, I mean, this is about, I tweeted it out today. This is the most joyful human being I have ever covered in the NFL. Like just being around him lifts up your spirits. I'm walking in. I'm going to do my best Trey White for you, Mitch. You play with him. Don't. So I'm walking. Oh, he'll appreciate this. So I'm walking into the facility with my crutches. I just sprained my ankle really bad, and I was in a boot for about a month and a half. Went to Disney World. I had to take a little scooter around.
It's a small.
And I'm
world.
walking through the mat, and he goes, and I'm walking through, and the DBs are doing the, they're hitting pads or bags or something, and I'm walking through. And all of a sudden, I say, Matt, damn, Matt, you got the Trey White going on, man. And I'm like,
that's actually really good.
Thank you for making a really, really big spectacle of this. He might have said some other things that I can't really repeat on the show, but he is a unbelievable original. But anyway, I could talk about Trey White all day long. I want to get back to Gabe Davis. So I bring that up because you are a former good guy, Kent Hall stand-up good guy award winner. Yeah. Now, I don't think Gabe Davis is ever going to win that award, but I respect Gabe Davis. Every time I've asked him to talk, he talks. And
of course.
Today or yesterday when we were talking to him, he kind of let it slip a little bit that this one does mean a little bit something extra. Because when he went down to Jacksonville, this was a big moment for him. And when he left Buffalo, if you remember, Mitch, some of the discourse around him was very negative. I mean, this is a guy that had accomplished a lot here. Didn't have the greatest end to his run. And I think a lot of Bills fans were like, all right, good. We can do better. And I think that, Gabe Davis's mother kind of got involved in the conversation on social media. It was a little bit nasty at times. So this was a fresh start. I think like Gabe was ready to go down there, but it didn't go his way, and he winds up back in Buffalo, and he does feel refreshed at this point. But I do think that this game on Sunday, it's crazy that he's back in this situation and probably going to be in a role where he's potentially starting against his former team in a huge playoff game where I've always felt there's been nobody at the receiver position, and I'm including Stephon Diggs in this, that has been better in big games than Gabe Davis over the course of Josh Allen's career. And that's not necessarily a dig at Diggs. It's more about how good Gabe Davis has been in the big moments.
I mean, talking about Trey White, who I adore. I mean, I absolutely adore. I could do the same thing with Gabe Davis. He's one of my best friends. Coming down here, I mean, when I signed with Jacksonville, he kind of texted me. He was like, there's a chance. My agent's telling me there's a chance. And then when we signed, dude, it was just a party. And then, yes, it did not end the way, either of us wanted it to in regards to professionally. And then for him, it was even exacerbated from all sorts of stuff. But it's one of those storylines that makes this game so enticing. But talking about edge, which Gabe Davis has this week, and he kind of plays with in general. The battle cry for the Jacksonville Jaguars this year is that they feel like they're the underdogs, that they feel like they are underappreciated, that they're the small market team, and that no one gives them a chance, and they like it that way. Tony Baselli tweets I forget what he tweets every week, but it's like us versus everyone. And it really
all y'all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Duval versus all y'all. And the team has adapted it, and rightfully so. Like, I think there is some merit to that. I don't think they're getting the flowers that they deserve. Matt, I'm going to ask you, what is Buffalo's battle cry for this offseason? Or not offseason, rather, but for this postseason?
Well, if they're really paying attention to the outside noise behind the scenes, it could be let's go win for Sean McDermott. Because I feel like it's funny. This is going to be a whole episode of a podcast in and of itself. But I feel like the pendulum has kind of shifted in the last year where I feel like fans are more frustrated with Brandon Beane than they are with Sean McDermott at this stage going into the playoffs. But depending on how this game goes, I mean, you have Mike Florio from Pro Football Talk putting out a report this morning that, John Harbaugh is kind of hanging out, waiting to see what happens with the Packers and the Bills. You have, I believe it was Jeremy Fowler from ESPN had a report about folks around the league are saying if this doesn't go well in the playoffs, maybe there's a change in Buffalo. Now, locally, getting a read on the ownership group and how close he is with Sean and Brandon, I just think it would have to be something cataclysmic to have them actually make a change. So I think that's a little bit out of left field. But at the same time, if you're a player, and you could talk to this more than me, but some players do see some stuff. I think even at some points in his career, Josh Allen has kind of seen some of the noise on social media, and he's even said that in press conferences. Right now, there's been stories that have been written about Sean and how much this iteration of the team really respects him, and he's brought the team together. He lets his players play and lead and all these kinds of things. Like, if you don't win this game, there could be real conversations happening inside the building. So I think that's part of the rallying cry. And I also think the other part of it is Deion Dawkins today said, hey, we're the 6th seed. We're not supposed to win, right? Like, you turn on ESPN, and I know that Liam Cohen said earlier in the week that the Jags are like a home underdog and they're using that smartly as kind of a chip. But if you turn on ESPN any morning, they're pretty much burying the Bills already. I mean, I think it was TJ Houshmandzadeh who went viral yesterday saying the Bills are going to get absolutely steamrolled. That stuff's getting back, I think. And so I think there's a couple of things at play here. And to me, this feels like this isn't a good way to kind of position this, but it's all I'm thinking of in the moment. It's like, it feels like this could be the last stand of the current construct of this regime if any of these things that have been bantied about end up actually coming to fruition. And we saw Mike McDaniel, who was safe could be on Monday, fired on Thursday. Yeah. Like, it's the NFL. You never know what's going to happen. So I think they got a couple things going on.
Beautiful battle cries. The outside noise. Yeah. I'm telling you, I would always delete my Instagram and Twitter for the season because, they're rarely constructive. And as an offensive lineman, it's like, hey, 61 or Mitch Morse, eat shit and die. I was like, thank you for being so constructive with your criticism. I will try not to do that again because I will eat shit and die. Speaking of outside noise, Case, have you been able to dive into some of the fan questions that we might be able to ask Matt and DiRocco?
We got a few of them. One of them says, "Hey, Mitch, tell Matt Boom Boom is in the house watching." So I guess that's to you, Matt. More of a statement.
That's
more of a statement there.
I like statements. Statements are great.
Yeah, this one's for you, Mitch. Favorite food not in Buffalo, if that's possible. That's from Buffalo Beetle.
Yeah, I'll tell you, there's actually, and DiRocco can speak upon this. There's a really cool sub place here. It's got a life of its own, and they have these delicious subs called Angie's. Angie's subs, man. No, pub subs great too. The Peruvian. There was like My Wife Left Me. They have some pretty funny things, and it's Angie's subs sandwiches, right? But so the stuff that they send, so everything they have, it just says ass. It's everything, but I'll tell you what, the ambiance is great. The food's delicious. Thank you for the question.
Yep. This other one, I guess, would be from Mike. Trevor, in this offense, what's been the biggest change in the 8-game win streak? Are Jags fans waiting for a bit of a turn into a pumpkin moment, or is this really talent the folks saw when they drafted him out of college?
Well, unquestionably, everybody in town is waiting for that other shoe to drop on Trevor Lawrence because it's without question. I mean, we've seen it before. He played great the second half of 22, early 23, tailed off a bit, and then got hurt, a bunch of injuries over the next 2 years. But yeah, there is that sense. But the thing of it is that early in the season when he had some issues with that offense, he's trying to learn the new offense. It's his third offense in his 5 years here. It's a complicated scheme, more complicated than the first offenses that he had to learn. Yeah. A lot of times there's two calls in the play, two play calls in the huddle. So he's coming up there, and if you watch some of the early games, those guys were having a hard time lining up, like De'Ami Brown, Travis Hunter. He's having to move guys around while he's trying to figure out what he's seeing pre-snap defense, figure out, do I need to change the play, and all that kind of stuff. And then you had the issues with the drops that I talked about before. So it was not exactly conducive to great quarterback play. They get through the first half of the season. They make those changes with Brian Thomas Jr. moving Parker Washington in. They get Jacoby Myers, which on trade deadline day, that was probably, if you were ranking the trades 1 to 100 of importance, that was probably 99. Right now, it's probably number 1, to be honest with you, because they got a guy that he just instantly developed chemistry with. The one thing that, look, quarterbacks love, the guy's supposed to run a 7-yard route. They don't cut it off at 6.5. They don't run at 7.5. And he is always in the spot that he is supposed to be when he's supposed to be there. And that trust level grew exponentially. And if you watch the Jags and the way Trevor's played the last 8 weeks, compared to the first, 5 or 6 or 7, he was waiting for guys to get open. There wasn't a lot of anticipatory throws there. He wasn't throwing guys open. They play that game against Houston. Jacoby's on the team. I think that's his first game. And Liam Cohen, the Monday, Tuesday after the Houston game, and Trevor had their weekly meeting, and he goes, just cut it loose. Let it rip. Quit. Just throw it. If you make a mistake, we'll deal with it. And it's not as simple to say that flipped the switch, but if you remember, he going into last year, he had the most turnovers of any player since he came into the league. It was like 60 turnovers. And that was the constant message in his head every offseason. Stop turning the ball over. Don't turn the ball over. You're killing us. You're killing us. Don't turn the ball over. So when he gets that pep talk or whatever you want to call it from Liam Cohen, it's the last little sort of like Lego together, and boom, everything just sort of kind of fit. And now he's making the anticipatory throws. He's throwing guys open. He's trusting those guys. They're using, like I said before, those guys in different roles. Brian Thomas stretch the field outside. It's just everything's working. And then you add in Liam Cohen as a play caller, and you've got a really good recipe for a high-level quarterback play. We saw it with Baker. obviously last year, career high, 41 touchdown passes when Liam Cohen was the offensive coordinator in Tampa last year. He has to do it over longer than 8 games. I mean, we have to see him do this for an entire season in 2026 before I think everybody around here will say that's the prince that was promised.
The prince that was promised. He's a great dude. He's tough as fuck too. He really is.
Oh yeah.
I can tell you. There's a fun story about. It's not so much fun for me. I feel kind of like a twat, but we were playing Philadelphia Eagles in 2024, and it's one of those close games we had. And he scrambles and kind of goes down, kind of gives one of these, gets up, and we're on this long drive, and we get to a 3rd and 1, and our favorite play was the QB sneak. We would just go, and it was pretty automatic. And he looks to the sideline, we get a play, it's not the QB sneak, we do it, and we don't get it. And I just kind of get in his grill. I'm like, hey, man, I use some choice words. I'm like, let's do this QB sneak. And he's just like, okay. And then I'm like, all right, cool. And then I look at him like, that's why we fucking do it. And then we do it again later. And it turns out I had asked a man to do 3 QB sneaks that drive whose bone was sticking out from a grade 5 AC joint. And he didn't say a word. The man's a dog, and that's why his team loves him. Casey, you got any more questions for us?
I do. We just got a fresh one here from Matt. Hey, Matt. This is Mark Bouchard. This is who it's from Syracuse. Do you think Bosa and Rousseau will be able to pressure Trevor enough? Thanks for the question, Matt.
They have to. And I think one of the big components of this game is I know that the left tackle, so I think he said earlier this week he's going to play. But if he isn't able to go, or if he's not 100% in this game, and it ends up being Walker Little that plays at left tackle, that could be a huge advantage, Buffalo, especially for Joey Bosa. I think this could be a big Joey Bosa game regardless of who's playing. This is what they brought him here for. He's finally healthy, dealt with a hand injury. He's wearing a club on his right hand for probably about 4 weeks, missed a game or two, sat out last week. And, I also think that, Greg Rousseau is a guy that they extended in the offseason. He's never had 10 or more sacks. He's never been the big, headline grabbing edge rusher, but he is a problem, especially in the run game. He sets the edge really well. When the Bills do send some of these different looks in terms of their blitz packages, he's the one that a lot of times can clean some things up and make things really messy for quarterbacks. So I think can they? Yes. Do they have to for the Bills to have success in this game? I think they do. I think the way the Bills have, deployed their resources over the last couple of off seasons has been to build things up front, and they got a lot of draft picks on the line. They got a lot of free agent additions on the line. And I think that in this game, you have to make sure that at the point of attack on both sides of the ball, your group is winning more than the other group. And I think they went out and they signed Ryan Nielsen. He's been really good as like
crossover.
He's like an adult in the room kind of thing. Like I hate saying that because Marcus West is a good dude. I'm sure he's a really good coach. I'm sure the guys love him in the room. But Ryan Nielsen's a guy that's developed like legit scary edge rushers in this league. And you could see the impact that he's had on a lot of the young players, but also like guys like Rousseau and Epinesa that have been here for a couple of years. So I think that line is going to be really important this weekend.
DiRocco, how about Nielsen? Is that a blast from the past as well for you, buddy?
It is. Is he wearing the attack hats? That's what I need to know.
Why do you have to bring that up?
It is mustache. Is his mustache?
RTDB and attack hats. Run the damn ball and attack.
He's got the mustache going.
Nielsen, I have a very special relationship with Nielsen. Ryan Nielsen, excuse me. He's an interesting bird, but I love him to death. He's a good man if you're not on defense, in my opinion. He's very nice. But you can't refute the fact that he's a changed man in regards to going down to going up to Buffalo. The guys love him. I got a chance to chat with him. It was awesome. Love that he's there with Sean. Any more questions there, Case?
Not so many questions. I did put a poll in here, or a little question of who do you think is going to win, and we got about a 50-50 split. A lot of the Bills fans, Matt, the concern is that the Jags Jags can stop the run, and the Bills fans, particularly this statement, Brady doesn't have the answers, i.e., against Atlanta, Miami, and Houston.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have any insight on that.
Yeah, I think that they're going to, have to do what the other team does just as well as they do. And that's a big piece of this matchup. And I also think that the thing to me that could really get James Cook going in this game that the Bills just don't seem comfortable fully leaning into is getting him going in the passing game too. Like when you don't have, we've talked about this wide receiver room all year, and maybe, they could have done a better job of maybe bringing in a couple more big time pieces, whether it be in free agency or the draft. They built it the way they built it for a reason. I think one of the big reasons is because they have James Cook who can do everything. I mean, when he's involved, I go back to one of the coolest plays of James Cook's career was against the Chiefs in a regular season game. I'm pretty sure Mitch was still playing in this one, and he just went out on a wheel route. And I just remember watching the all-22 of the linebacker almost looking at him like, you bastard, because I'm in big trouble here, because I'm not going to catch you. You're in open space, and Josh zipped the ball out to him, and boom, it was a touchdown instantly. And that's to me where I think Brady can do a lot better job. And the other thing too is this is a Bills team that's been knocking on the door. 15th playoff game for Sean McDermott as a head coach. You wonder how much they've wised up to, hey, maybe we don't want to empty the tank in terms of what we can do offensively and what we're good at in the regular season if we can win games and compete with the baseline level stuff. I mean, look at Joe Brady all season long. He's gone the most viral when he has spammed the same play over and over again. Go back to that Pittsburgh Steelers team. That's not a bad Steelers run defense, guys.
No.
But, man, did they just keep running the same thing. Cam Hayward was looking around. He was so pissed he started talking trash to Josh Allen about it.
Oh, he was so mad.
They couldn't stop it.
He was so mad.
Yeah, Casey was the first ever mascot for the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, I was.
He's got a little skin in the game. So we've had a bunch of good fan questions. I have a question to end this thing. And before we end this thing, I want to say thank you so much to Matt Parrino and to Michael DiRocco. Father DiRocco, thank you for showing up in a big way. This game to me, I'll just preface this by saying that it's going to kind of suck seeing my friends go at it. I got skin in the game for both guys. Even though you're at a place for a year, you grow these intense relationships, and it's been really fun being here in Jacksonville, seeing these guys get their flowers and play good football, because I told people last year that these are damn good football players, and to see them celebrate that is unbelievable. Can't refute the fact that I was there in Buffalo for 5 years, and when I go to bed at night, and I don't often dream of being a football player, but if I do, I dream of being a Buffalo Bill. I will be watching the game by myself in my room, and there will be a sense of mourning regardless of who wins and who loses. Of course, different probably levels of mourning depending on who wins and who loses, but regardless, still a sense of mourning. My last question, because I'm fans of both of you guys, is I have consciously not tried to bring up the quarterbacks too much because they are superstars. You can't spin it any other way. These men, we have one MVP and one playing like an MVP, and probably both playing like an MVP, to be honest. So what I want to do is I want to ask you guys, each one of you, what is one key to victory for y'all's ball club that excludes using your quarterback's name or the opposing quarterback's name? And I'll start with Matt.
Oh, you're gonna put me
He's
on the
like,
hot
damn
seat.
it. Why couldn't you throw that to
Put me
Mike?
on the hot seat with my one big key to the game. I'm going to go back to a question I asked Josh point blank. And I know it's not going to be using him, but I do kind of got to use him. So sorry, I'm not going to play your game, Mitchell. Okay. I asked him a question. Like, you guys were really bad on the road this year, like uncharacteristically bad. And what's gone right in Cleveland and New England that's kind of flipped the script? And he kind of looked annoyed at the question, but then had a one sentence answer. And he's like, take care of the football, ball security. And then just looked at somebody for the next question. And I think that there's a sense that, listen, they have been too careless with the ball. And I think this is a team in Jacksonville that, okay, they're taking it away as much as anybody in the league. Their turnover differential is, I think, second in the NFL. So I went through every single game this season that Jacksonville's played, and I found the 2 games where they lost the turnover battle. Check out this stat, guys. The Bills won 25 straight games when they tied or won the turnover battle. Even in the games the Jags lost the turnover battle this year twice, they won both of those games. So you can go on the road, you can take care of the ball, you could force a takeaway or two, and you still might end up losing this game. But what I can tell you is on the road in the playoffs, if you turn the ball over, like the Bills have had a little bit more of a propensity to do this season, it's going to be curtains. And they're going to have to get back into that same situation that they've gotten themselves out of a bunch of times this season. But eventually, you can't get out of it. You're playing too good of a team. You're going to be playing too good of teams over the next couple of weeks on the road. So I think my number one key to the game, offensively, you have to take care of the ball. You cannot give Jacksonville short fields. You don't want to play from too far behind, because I feel once this offense gets rolling, it gets rolling. And the Bills have had some issues defensively, especially early in games. So take care of the ball.
Yep.
You're a dick, Matt, for immediately saying Josh Allen, but God bless you. That was a beautiful way to get around that. And it's a great answer. Thank you for playing. I accept your answer. Mr. DiRocco, Father DiRocco, what do you have for us?
1 point deduction.
Yeah, no, it's cool. I dig it. That was a great answer.
Even with the players who shall not be named, they kind of cancel each other out in a way. So this is a good question. I think the key to this game is going to be Travis Etienne and James Cook. And, from the Jags defensive standpoint, James Cook can kill you if he gets in the open field. They can't have that. You know what I mean? Like, they cannot give up explosive runs to him. They just cannot and have a chance to win this game. It's got to be 2nd and 8. You know what I mean? It's got to be 2nd and 7, 2nd and 10. 2-yard, 3-yard, 4-yard, 5-yard runs, whatever, but you cannot give up the 25-yarder. You cannot give up the 45-yarder. RJ Harvey burned him because 2 guys got out of position in Denver 3 weeks ago, and he went, 43 yards for a touchdown. That can't happen. If that happens, then they're in trouble. And Travis Etienne really needs to kind of get going. They haven't run the ball very well the last, 4, 5, 6 weeks. He hasn't had a 100-yard game since week 4 when he went for, I think, 124 in San Francisco. So they've got to get him going too. I think whichever one of those 2 guys has the better game, I think that their team wins it. Look, the Bills' rush defense is 28, and the Jags really want to run the hell out of it because they want to keep he who must not be named on the sideline over there. So if they go ahead and they can kind of control the clock, and then they limit James Cook's explosive plays, they got a really good chance to win this game.
Matt, that's how you do it. No, boys, beautiful answers. I know Casey's got something to say, but I would like to close out my part by saying I cannot thank you enough for joining us for this first live show. I'm sweating profusely.
That was
And
awesome.
You boys carried us through it. I hope, D-Rock, we're just getting to know you. I hope this fellowship can keep going. Matt,
Absolutely.
I love you, dog. And you got to get me on that skin routine. And we're going down to Disney here in a few weeks to do drinking around the world. So the invite's out. Bring your wife. We'll get blasted.
Ooh.
And I just, God bless you, boys. I really appreciate you. Case, what do you got for us, buddy?
I was just gonna say, and I also we're getting some banter here in the chat, but the fact of the matter is, Jags on paper, in my opinion, I think are the better roster. Offense full of superstars. I mean, they're just playing on such a high caliber. Buffalo's a little dinged up in the back end. Fact of the matter is, I don't think you can ever count Josh Allen out of a playoff situation. And that's a scary thing. That's a tough thing. And one of those, and we're talking about stats, we're talking about this and that. And the fact of the matter is, this is a playoff game, boys. Those stats don't make a lick of difference. It's literally win or go home. And, it's tuck your nuts and play your best ball. And I think I am personally, I was with the Jags for 4 years, and I've been, with Mitch, and I've gotten to know a lot of the folks with the Bills. And so I'm partial to both. But I think what we need to do, and according to the old stats or the old chat here, I think we need a prediction from you two. I'm gonna stay out. I'm gonna stay out of that, and I know Mitch probably will too because
Dude,
we
kick
got
rocks,
friends.
chat. I'm not doing. And
We
I'm
got
not,
we got
I'm not putting
friends on
myself out there.
both sides, but I think we need to get a prediction here from Matt and Mike.
All right. Well, and I assume you guys will go one way or another, but give us maybe a little bit of the score prediction too.
Yeah,
Maybe a little
that's-
bit of like
that's-
maybe differential, maybe not like whatever it is, but like point margin differential.
Okay.
Okay. I'll go first because Matt, you took first on the other one that he asked. The Jags are playing really, really well. This is the best I've seen Trevor Lawrence play, and I've seen every game he's played. Obviously, he is playing at an ungodly level, MVP level. If he played like this the whole year, he would be the MVP without question. Josh Allen if you're a Jags fan, he just scare the hell out of you. I mean, the Patriots game, they're down 21-0 at half. And then the next thing you know, Josh Allen goes nuts. That's a real possibility at any moment in that game on Sunday. That being said, I like the fact the game's being played in Jacksonville. There's a little bit of a home thing. I think it's going to be a field goal game either way.
Oh, I agree.
I agree with
I
that.
agree.
And and if we're going to do that, I think I got to give it to Cam Little because that could be a 60. Like they will
It could be a
not
70-yarder.
they will not hesitate to have him run out there and kick a 62, 63-yard field goal at any point in this game. It's just, not at all. And clearly they'll let him try 65, 66, 60, whatever. I mean, I think that probably is going to end up being the difference because I do think in the playoff games, you just generally don't see blowouts. So I would probably take the Jags by maybe 2 or 3, 1, 2 or 3 points, but it's not with 100% certainty by any stretch.
The chat, what is it, predictions chat.
Hey man,
That's a great one. It's a beautiful answer, Matt. What do you got for us?
Well, let me tuck my nuts before I give this prediction on this episode of this beautiful podcast, and just say that I think the Bills are in a spot where they're attempting to do something they've not done under Sean McDermott, and that is win on the road in the playoffs. And that's a thing. Like, that is something that you have to overcome against a really good team. Like, I go back to the Jacksonville Jaguars game in 2017, different team. Tyrod Taylor was the quarterback. It almost feels like a different era, right? But you go on the road and you play a pretty good tight game and you don't get it done. The next 2 years later, you have Josh Allen now in his early days, Mitch Morse on that team. You go on the road and you're up 16-0 on the Houston Texans. It feels like, how could you lose this game? And it somehow ends up being on the losing end of things. And obviously we know of all the disasters in Arrowhead over the years. With all that said, I think the Bills are elite coming off of the bye. And this is kind of like a weird kind of bye. But what I have heard is that the Jags were a 46% chance of being the Bills' opponent going into this week. So I'm pretty sure the advanced scouts have been on this game going back to coming off the Eagles game. And they do a great job of game planning when they have that kind of time. And the other thing, too, that really gives me confidence the Bills can win on the road is what they did against that Philadelphia run game. Like, Jalen Hurts was kept in check. Saquon Barkley ran for 68 yards. Like, this isn't necessarily the run defense that we've been talking about for the majority of the season. They have found some answers on the defensive line, second and third level. Shaq Thompson is very likely going to play. This has been a completely different defense when he's on the field.
I 100% agree.
I think in the end, I'm probably going to go Josh Allen over Trevor Lawrence. But if you sold me on the Jags winning this game, I would probably believe whatever tale you told. I'm going to go 33-27.
And he gave us a score. I will give a prediction. I will give a prediction. My prediction is the road to the AFC's, whoever represents the AFC in Santa Clara goes through Everbank Stadium. It's Sunday, 1 o'clock Eastern time, because these two teams have it going on. It's going to be a bloodbath in the most beautiful way, boys. It's playoff football, like you guys said. Tuck your nuts. It is not. We could have had this conversation for an hour and 14 minutes at this point, talking about all this stuff, analytics, breaking down a beautiful thing. Who knows? Because it's playoff football, baby, and that's what we line up for. And two juggernauts are going at it. This is Monday Mornings with Mitch. We are joined by Michael DiRocco, D-Rock, Father D-Rock, and Matt Parrino. God bless you, fellas. And God bless you, the listeners, as much as I was blasting the chat for those questions. Those were beautiful questions. And please join us next time. We love you guys. And we look forward to doing this again in the future. Thank you, fellas.
Thanks,
Thank
boys.
you.
Appreciate it. Mitch, I got a question for you, though.
Oh, no.
Behind you, you have one of the white Jaguar helmets.
Yeah, check that out.
Yeah, we wore that
You
last year.
and I might be the only two people in this city who actually like those helmets. I heard everybody else hates them. Those things are sweet.
They're super sexy. The only thing I have about white helmets, see if they refurbished this one a little bit. I don't know if you can see this, but you can tell when a player doesn't use technique in the white helmets because the first thing you hit is the opponent with the thing. This was actually the Minnesota Vikings game. I fumbled a snap. You know, that's twice, Matt Parrino, that I fumbled a snap against the Minnesota Vikings that cost us the game. Matt Parrino was there for that one where I couldn't sleep for 3 days. That was a hoot. But yes, love the helmet, and I love you boys. Thank you for joining
buddy.
us. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for
Until
having us.
next
It was a
time, we'll
blast.
see y'all later.
I've got a long list of real good reasons for all the things I've done. And regret is just a memory written on my brow. And there's nothing I can do about it now.